What's up guys, thanks for joining me on my first video. This one is going to be a 3-part series in which I'm going to be guiding you through the basic principles on how to build muscle. So we're going to call this one the beginner's guide to getting massive. The beginner's guide to building muscle. So it's going to be a 3-part series. We're going to talk about training, we're going to talk about nutrition and recovery. So the 3 kind of key principles that are going to govern how your body responds and how you build muscle. In today's video I'm going to talk about training, and that's going to also be broken down into 3 elements. The first thing is going to be volume, the second thing is going to be what exercises to actually select, the third thing is going to be how to go about your training and how to go about your progression. When I look back to how I used to train, if I knew these things now, my training would have just soared tenfold. And as a beginner, what we have to understand is that we don't need much volume when it comes to building tissue. Big mistake I see a lot of newbies do when they enter the gym, and it's something that I've done as well when I first started training for years, and that's just pick one muscle group and train that muscle group for that hour or that 90 minutes. And when we think about, as a beginner, your ability to recover is not going to be that good. And equally, how much volume you need to create an adaptive response. And that's what we're trying to do when we train. We're trying to create a new stimulus that our body hasn't received before, that we therefore have to respond from. And what I mean by that in its simplest form is, if we're going into the gym, we're breaking tissue down and giving it something new that it hasn't received before, i.e. lifting more weight, applying more tension. Our body then goes, God, fuck, I don't want to have to deal with that again. I need to come back stronger. I need to dilate. I need to increase my muscle size. Now, subject to nutrition and recovery being on point, that will occur. You will come back stronger. You will grow muscle tissue. And that's essentially what we're trying to create in the beginning phase. But when we first start training, we don't need much volume. We don't need much stress to create that adaptive response, because everything we're doing is pretty novel, and therefore everything we're doing, the body's going to quickly respond from. In fact, when you first start training, the amount of muscle growth you can get will surpass any other period of your training. Even as an experienced lifter, where your execution is on point and your nutrition and everything is on cue, and you've been doing it for years, you will never reap the same rewards that you will from being a beginner when you first start training, because everything's a shock, everything's a novel stimulus. So at this period, we really want to try and rinse as much progress as we can by ensuring that our training volume coincides with what we can actually recover from. So typically what you will see as a beginner lifter, and this may relate to yourself, this certainly related to me when I first started training, and that is following your typical bro split. So Monday chest, Tuesday back, Wednesday shoulders, legs wouldn't even get a look in. Now, if you're following this training rotation and you've got a full session on chest, let's say chest for example, and you're doing 6 or 7 exercises, 3 or 4 working sets, you're doing like 24, 25 working sets on one muscle group. I wouldn't even be able to recover from that now, and I would consider myself an experienced lifter. What would be a better approach is, say for example, a couple of exercises on chest, shoulders, back, and arms. So that's 8 exercises in total. 3 working sets, so you're looking at 8, 16, 24 total working sets across the span of a session. And what you're doing in this scenario is you're hitting less volume, but you would increase the frequency of the amount of times that you're hitting that muscle group. And when we consider that muscle protein synthesis, and this is essentially when your body is building muscle and responding from that stimulus that we've created, when we consider that this really will only last anywhere between 24 to 48 hours, we are really missing out on a big window where we could potentially be breaking tissue down and responding again if we're only hitting one muscle group one time per week, for example, Monday chest day. So in terms of how much we can actually scale our potential muscle growth, we're massively limiting that if we're only training one muscle group once per week. And also marry that with the fact that we're potentially or definitely doing too much volume on that muscle group, we're going to be limiting our ability to then progress in the next time we hit that muscle group, because we're not really going to recover from that, because we're hitting it with too much volume. So training volume, the best rotation for a beginner is going to be a full body split, or sometimes I'll put a client on an upper, lower. So in this scenario, we would do upper, Chest, shoulders, back, arms, a couple of exercises on each, and then we would do a lower session to follow that, where we would do a full lower body session, maybe some core work, something like that. Then a rest day after those 2 days to recover. And then we would go and hit the upper and lower again and keep rotating through. So instead of doing a week where we would have one session per week, you would simply just rotate through upper, lower, rest, upper, lower, rest. And this is a really good rotation for a beginner. The second aspect is going to be what exercises to select. Now, something that I see done wrong a lot is people rush into the big daddy movement. So everyone wants to get strong at a deadlift, everyone wants to get strong at a bench press or an RDL, but ultimately, if you are not in a position mechanically to be able to perform that exercise efficiently, it's going to do more damage than good. And one thing I see working in gyms for the last 5-6 years a lot is people doing exercises that they have no right even trying to perform yet. Not because they're not big enough or they're not strong enough, but more for the fact that they haven't got the strength in the right areas to be able to perform that exercise efficiently. So let's take a squat, for example, or an RDL, Romanian deadlift. That's an easier one to explain. A lot of people will try and perform an RDL without having the strength in the glutes to be able to keep spine neutral, to be able to actually recruit the glutes in the bottom portion of the lift, to actually perform hip extension, to pull the weight up, the barbell up, and therefore the weight will translate onto the low back, and we'll get this kind of folding of the back, and they'll end up pulling the weight through the spine erectors. And this is really common. It's something I see done with deadlifts, with Romanian deadlifts. Now, on paper, an RDL is one of the best movements, in my opinion, for building density, not just kind of in the legs, but in the back and the spinal erectors, but only if done efficiently. If done inefficiently and load is then transferred to the low back because we haven't got the right strength to actually perform that movement, not only is it going to be counterproductive, but it's also going to be dangerous, and you can do yourself a lot of damage. So what I would suggest in the beginning phases of your training is pick movements that you can feel, learn and get obsessed with how to feel muscle. And that's something that I was obsessed with. Unfortunately, I was obsessed with from a very early stage. I simply just wanted to learn how I could feel this tricep push down better in my triceps, how I could feel this dumbbell row better in my lat. And I wasn't obsessed about getting strong. I am now. So I would normally get newbies on a lot of machine-based work, and there's nothing wrong with a machine. You're still applying tension. Your muscles don't know if you're applying tension with a machine or a dumbbell or a barbell or what. So get yourself on machine-based movements where you can lock yourself in and you can just learn how to recruit. I don't know why I'm doing the chest press, but you can learn how to recruit tension. You can learn how to feel the chest. And once you can feel your chest in a chest press machine, then you can go onto a dumbbell and try and get that same stimulus in a dumbbell. But if you haven't learned how to feel your chest and you go straight into a dumbbell chest press, like I see a lot of people doing, you have no chance in actually feeling that chest recruitment. All you're going to be concerned about is taking that dumbbell from A to B. And this is why a lot of the time we get people with overdeveloped shoulders and the kind of protracted look with a very flat chest. Because actually recruiting your chest is a really difficult movement to do. Find movements that you can lock into, you can feel tension on the right muscle group. Think about the muscle you're working. I know that sounds crazy, but I see a lot of people who are training and they're not even considering what's being worked. They're just moving weight from A to B. So get obsessed, feeling the muscle and trying to overload tension, because progressive overload is only going to be relevant if we're actually overloading tension and not just overloading weight. Ultimately, when we're training, every time we're in the gym, we're looking to progress. We're looking to create a new stimulus that our body can adapt to and come back stronger. If we're not logging what we're doing, we're massively inhibiting our ability to therefore progress, because you may know what your top set is on a chest press machine. You may know that you can hit 60 kilos for 8 reps, but you're not going to see all of your progress in a nice linear line in terms of each session one after the other. So without actually logging everything you're doing, you're really kind of capping your ability to move forward. So I get all my clients to log all of their lifts. Just purchase yourself a little logbook, take it to your sessions. Not only is it going to serve as kind of a textbook to tell you exactly what you've done so you can see what numbers you need to beat and demand progress, but it's also going to serve as motivation, because let me tell you now, there's nothing more motivating than seeing your numbers slowly go up. Now, as long as we're recruiting tension and we're keeping our execution consistent, if we're progressively getting stronger, we are going to be growing and adapting from that. as long as nutrition and recovery is on point, and those are the pointers that I'll talk about in the next video. So to recap, we've talked about volume. In regards to volume, we want to be hitting high frequency on muscle groups, but low actual volume in each individual session on each muscle group. So we're talking a couple of exercises on each muscle group, binding together in one session, hitting that session across the week 2 or 3 times. In terms of the exercises themselves, find the machines that you can lock into, you can feel tension, get obsessed with feeling tension in a muscle group before you even worry about getting stronger. And then finally, logging lifts, tracking your progress, ensuring that every time you step in the gym, you're trying to beat your previous numbers. And as long as you're doing all them things, you're going to be putting your body in a position where it wants to recover and it wants to come back strong. I hope this one was helpful, guys. If you have got any questions, leave them below in the comment section. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one. That was pretty cheesy.